So first up is my disclaimer. So I'm here just in a personal capacity, so I'm not representing ResMed, I'm not representing Novartis, I'm just kind of giving my own personal opinion on things. So I have been kind of interested in sleep for about 15 years now, but I will at least just give things from my point of view of what I've learned. I'm not a doctor, so no medical experience, so don't take any of this as diagnosis or anything like that. It's just my opinion, and feel free to ask any questions or say anything. And so to start off with, I suppose from a personal point of view, I would have been a slightly bad sleeper as a child and teenager, and I didn't really pass any attention on it. In college, I went through about 2 weeks where I had very, very bad sleep, so I started taking an interest in how to sleep better, and so it kind of made me a bit more proactive into looking into it, which kind of led me to pay a lot more attention into sleeping habits and things that affect my own sleep. And I think it's a really good thing to have an awareness of for your own self. You know, this is Quantified Sleep, so you know, I think it's a really important thing to look into and be aware of. And so from there, I did a final year project, which looked into changes in respiration and heart rate during sleep. And a few years later, I got a job with Med, which is an on-contact sensor company, which then became ResMed. So I was with them for about 8 years, and I picked up a master's as well on the way. So I do have a kind of background in engineering, signal processing and sleep, and I've been involved in different trials and things. So that's where this comes from. And really what I'm doing here is just an intro to lead into Alex and Dara's speeches about their own data that they collect themselves. So I'm going to be talking at a high level about sleep and sleep apnea, and just some observations and things I've learned along the way. So I'm going to start off with just some sleep learnings and talk about, you know, sleep measurement methods, briefly about sleep apnea, and then sort of differences in sleep for different people and what it all kind of means. So first off, I said when I started having sleep trouble myself, the first thing that I started paying attention to was what I was eating for sleep. So that does impact on what you eat for the day, because obviously you want to be full enough not to have to eat a big meal for 3 hours before you go to bed. So I think it's really important for people to be aware of what they're eating before they go to bed. So I have a picture of chamomile tea here. That's something that I generally think is really good, and it's just kind of relaxation. Obviously, a lot of this is your own personal choice, so there are things to avoid. Like there's actually a lemon in our picture, so don't have lemon before you go to bed. Citric fruit is probably a bad idea. But things like eating, there's some people have advice on eating potassium foods like bananas or walnuts and things that have melatonin in them. But it's kind of really personal choice and something to look into. I think it's just good to have an awareness of it. So as I said, personally for me, I'll try and avoid like a large meal 3 hours before I go to bed. And it's really just about having observations about that for yourself and what helps you. The other thing is, I find really interesting on the other graph, is about changes in your body temperature during the night. So this basic graph shows the body temperature for somebody over 24 hours. So you can see it dips down about 2 degrees during the night. And what I read somewhere, I can't remember where, it was a few years ago, but it was really advising that if you change your body temperature during the day, your body gets quite relaxed about changing its temperature, and that means that it's quite able to drop its temperature to help you fall asleep. So things that I find really good at that is obviously exercise. You're increasing your body temperature, and then you're cooling down after it, so you're having those changes in body temperature. And things like jacuzzis, saunas, ice baths, things like that change your body temperature during the day. So that means at night time your body's quite used to adjusting your temperature down. So personally I find that one a really good tip for improving sleep. And it might be something that people don't necessarily always think about. But obviously there are also advice things. I know if you read up on it, it'll say to have a warm bath before bed rather than a hot bath before bed, because you don't want to change your body temperature too much. But I think it's really about making observations and changing things yourself and seeing what works. So I'm going to now just give an overview of the gold standard sleep measurement. So if you were in a hospital situation or a sleep lab situation, they would use polysomnography, which is the recognised gold standard for recording sleep. And it gives really accurate information. It gives like 30 seconds epochs and all the different sleep staging, and also gives you information about sleep apnea, which I'll talk about in a minute. So you can see the sketch here. On the right, it gives you a feeling for the amount of devices that are on you if you go into a sleep lab for a full PSG. So you can see there's EEG monitors, and there is also EOG ones, and there's chest bands for your respiration, there's ECG for your heart rate, and there's a pulse oximeter on your finger to get your blood oxygen levels. So it's quite intensive, so it's not something, it's something that's very expensive, you can't be doing every night. It requires expert technicians to make sure everything's on you correctly, that the electrodes in the right places, and it also requires an expert to analyse the data afterwards. So this is like really good data, but it's quite difficult to get it. So there's a lot of benefits of the more simple devices, like your heart rate monitors or your activity monitors or breathing monitors, because they can be used more regularly. So there's a huge benefit in getting sort of less highly accurate data, but over a long period of time, so you can see trends in your own data. Okay, and then this is about sleep staging. So this classic method for sleep staging is based on the PSG, which is looking at the electrode signals on your brain. So you can see I have a list of sort of the terminology that's used for the different waves that are picked up in the EEG device for the different sleep stages. The typical stages we compare are wake, light, deep, and REM. Light can also be stage 1 and 2, and deep is also stage 3 and 4. It's just different terminology that's used. So you can see during a typical night you cycle through different stages in the sleep. So there's a sample hypnogram here, so you can see the person starts off being awake and they dip down to light, then into deep, and then back up to light, then back into deep, and back up and then into REM stages. And that's pretty typical throughout everyone's night. You'll cycle through different things at different times, and it'll be, it will be different for every person. It's typically about sort of 60 to 90 minutes in a cycle, which includes deep, and then as the night goes on, your cycles in REM will be shorter, about 30 to 60 minutes. And it is normal enough to have little wake bursts. Whenever you've been to light sleep, you can easily just kind of wake up for a few minutes. You mightn't remember it all, or you might, but it's perfectly normal to have that sort of interrupted sleep during your night. And you can see I also included like different methods that are used to distinguish stages. So in your light sleep and your deep sleep, there are also distinctions in your heart rate and your breathing variability. So you can see that throughout the night as well. And that's Alex and Dara using sort of other devices to monitor the sleep, and some of those other devices will be based off these methods. So I'm going to chat about sleep apnea. So firstly, I have a fairly non-PC picture. This is a cartoon from Charles Dickens, and it was called, basically, this character kept falling asleep the whole time, and he's slightly overweight, and it became, actually this was used for people to describe the symptoms that they were having of breathing problems and sleep apnea. So they would describe themselves as being very similar to this character here from the Pickwick Papers, and that kind of led to more research being done into sleep apnea. So we now know that sleep apnea can affect more people than just people who have extra weight on them. It can be a genetic thing, it can be the shape of your throat, and also you have central apnea, which is a brain signal that doesn't quite sound to keep your breathing going continuously. But today I'm going to chat mainly about obstructive sleep apnea, and it's really a high-level overview, and it points just so that if the terms come up in the other talks, you all kind of know what we're talking about. I know there's lots of people in the room who've got a lot of experience with this, so this is just for people who don't know a lot about it. So you can see in the diagram here, you can see the normal airways open during normal sleep, and you can see during an obstructive sleep where the muscles have relaxed and there's a blockage in the airway which is restricting the breathing, and that's kind of what you call an apnea event. So the word apnea comes from the Greek word which means no breath. So basically apnea is just during the sleep where there's a section where there's no breathing, and it typically lasts just over 10 seconds. I have sample signals here. So you can see from the top there's kind of an apnea and a hypopnea. So an apnea is a more severe event, which where the breathing rate drops down below 20%, and hypopnea is just 50%. Now everyone does have some events of this during the night. So for me, any recordings I've done myself, I've typically been between about 2 and 4 apneas, which is apnea hypopnea index. It's how many events you have per hour of sleep. So it's that I typically between 2 and 4, and that's perfectly normal. But it would mean in a 6 hours session of sleep, I'd be having like 30 events. So it is normal that this could happen. And so below 5 is perfectly normal. I think my worst score was at 8, and that's when I had a throat infection, so my throat was quite closed up, and it did cause me to have more events. So if you're below 5, you're perfectly normal. If you're between 5 and 15, you're kind of mild. But the threshold for clinical sleep is 15, and so above that, you want to be seeing your doctor and getting a solution put in place for it. And Yeah. So they said there is central apnea as well, but haven't really talked about that, mainly focusing on obstructive. And then finally, this is just a nice graphic showing kind of variation in sleep for different people. So different people do kind of need different amounts of sleep, and it's really about kind of working out what works for you and what's best for you. Obviously, assessing if if you actually have a problem sleeping, you should go and talk to your doctor about it. But this is really just about assessing, if you're what you expect and if it's not causing any problems in your lifestyle. So there are obviously going to be nights every week where people have a bad night's sleep, but it's just about assessing if you have them really often, then you need to look into it. But I think a lot of the devices we're going to talk about are great for helping you regulate your own sleep and get on top of it. So this graph kind of shows the differences in the sleep duration that people would expect to get. So you can see different people have got different ideas, and kind of once between sort of 6 and 9 hours, you're kind of in a good place. Also, there is a difference in the sleep quality you get throughout your lifetime. So obviously we all know kids, babies and very young children need to sleep a lot more, but that there is a trend throughout your life that if when you get a bit older you'll get less sleep, but mainly just different quality of sleep as well. So the blue graph here shows the distribution in your light sleep and your deep sleep and your REM sleep, and how that kind of changes throughout different times in your lifetime. Yeah, okay, and that kind of will lead now into the data that Alex and Dara have collected, showing about their own sleep patterns, and we can reference back some of these things if people have questions from their talk. Okay, thank you.